So Cameron, from where we left off with your pitch, where are you with your project now?
I've managed to change the name, added some more to the PowerPoint where I've talked about the different sort of characteristics of the characters. Did some more research as well because obviously my research was kind of lacking, and then I've just been updating my website.
Okay, so is it not called Firstopia anymore?
No, I need to change that as well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So make sure that's.
So do I need to delete that one and then add the other one?
Yeah, I don't think because it's a PDF you can't edit it. You just upload the new version and switch that out. Okay, that's your first thing to do. We've got that. Everything else is complete on there. That's good. Have you got? Let's just check while we're doing housekeeping stuff. Have you got your authentication statement there? Say that's your own work. Yes, you have. Cool. That's good. So your homepage reflects that. Let's just look. We've got on your evaluation page. You should have your video then of your pitch, and your presentation there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've responded.
Go on. I need to add the other pitch as well, seeing as I changed it, don't I? Or...
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we do need to do an updated version, don't we?
Yeah.
Research lacking, so 2 pitches. Okay, so that's from your peer review. All right, that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying to me that you've now tightened it down. You've come up with a new title. Have you changed the theme of the project? Because the key thing.
Yeah, I've lowered the age, and I've sort of changed the theme as well.
Okay. What is the theme now then? Is it dystopian or? Yeah,
it's just just an RPG now, like an adventure style RPG.
Okay, great. That would fit better with the type of product that you pitched, I think.
Yeah.
Right, it's still distinctly limited amount of research here, Cameron. This is week 5 or 6. No, week 6 of the project. Yeah. This is not healthy looking.
Because I didn't know what else to research. That's basically what gave me my inspiration, and that was it. I haven't got anything else to research into.
Okay, we'll have a look at options now. But if I'm looking, when we go here, research, context and research. So what I need to do is come to your page and know exactly what your project is in terms of the context. I need to see that you have an understanding of what makes an RPG game, an RPG character specifically, because you're designing the characters, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, then what's informing that design? So where that's coming from, etc. So you've got on here references of Skyrim, Khajiit characters, and then this character, this more sort of furry-inspired character from Winds of Change. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we need to know about is the things that inform the type of design that we see in the character. In Skyrim, we have this distinctly kind of medieval sort of fantasy environment style that we can buy into. The character, therefore, all the characters, whether they're human race, like the one on this splash screen here or title screen cover of if you like, of the game, is a human race. But the Khajiit character equally feels like it fits that world because it has a leather clothing element here. It has clothes that feel like of that era. It has objects and items that reflect in the style of that character. So even though it's not a human race, it has something that makes it fit of that world. Yeah. So you're not designing the environment, but you need to show consideration of the world, of the environment, of where it's set. So have you got an idea? Is your game going to be set in a similar world to Skyrim? Is it going to be set in this kind of medieval fantasy style?
Yes. It's going to be different sort of environments, like Skyrim.
Yeah.
Snowy desert kind of stuff.
So whilst the map in Skyrim has different biomes and different types of styles, it still is all that one medieval sort of inspired world. We have castles, we have battlements, we have the houses are thatch. They feel distinctly old British or old kind of medieval era style, whether they're grand places for nobles and upper class and things like that, or whether they're for working class peasants or whatever. They still have the feeling that they belong in that world. Okay. And so part of your job in your research is to establish what's driving the character's aesthetic. Yeah, like we have here, we've got some reference here to different class systems where we've got stealth, magic, combat, all those kinds of things. I think I need to see more of this happening, and like wider research as well. So not just games, and think this is quite nice, but I need to see research in terms of, right, well, what does how is armor made up? So if one of your characters has armor, for example, how's the armor plating working? Let's see details of that. Is it going to be these like overlapping segments? Is it going to be having a helmet that then has to be partly exposed to show the character, or are you going to have one where you've got holes for the ears to stick out of, or whatever? Do you know what I mean? Because you're dealing with quite specific considerations when you're mixing and creating an anthropomorphized animal character in a human biped stance.
Yeah.
So there's the research that needs to reflect that, basically, that I need to see happening. So from costume design, that's one thing to look at. Yeah. Environment design, so I need to know what the world is that the character's gonna live in, where it's set.
I have done a bit of clothes research recently about like peasant clothes, and then like the armor of what my character is, but I haven't obviously gone into detail, so I'll go more into detail with that.
Yeah. And I think like we can build on like what's happening here. The medieval armor would be good to start to draw my character wearing this would show that the player could later on get armor and narrative show that he's gone from a peasant. Okay, so we're looking at a progression system where they're working their way up from peasant to like noble or something, are we?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. So in which case, I think Fable's a really good example of a game franchise that does that really well to look at. Okay.
Yeah. I've also got my how to draw furries book that I could do with the research as well.
Yeah, that comes into like technical research. So when we're looking at when you're actually into planning and production and practical work, and you're drawing and designing, then that should be influencing this stage of work here. Okay, as well. All right.
Yeah.
So lots of research on environment, clothing, and I think like the type of reflection that you're putting into this. What I need to know from this is like what you're getting from the idea. So let's have some research on not just general stuff, but like, right, what's the sort of textures that we're looking at? When we get up close, you're going to need to be drawing this yourself. You're going to be doing digital renders, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want up close. We need to know how you're going to go about replicating worn leather texture or shiny metals, or sort of fur up the top here, or fur on your character. So how are you going to go about doing it? And you don't necessarily need to do that in sort of one go in a final thing, but lots of little sort of experiments. That's where I'd like to see, rather than this kind of drawing process where you're initially tracing over blanks, sort of copies, that you're experimenting and exploring texture references like that. Yeah. So it's not just block color that we're trying to create the texture relief. If you decide then that your game doesn't have the texture detail, or you don't want as much detail, fine, but you need to provide the justification for that. Do you know what I mean? So I want to see that kind of thing going on. Make your images bigger, like make sure that you format your site so that this should be like the full width. These images should be the full width of the page.
Okay.
When you produce, that's a lot of time that's gone into this work, so make sure that that's big and celebrated, and details are zoomed in on. So you've got maybe even one that's much bigger than the rest and things like that. It's okay, but there needs to be a lot more happening on here, Cameron. This is, like I say, this is week 6 of nearly, at the point where we're pretty much, in terms of college weeks, at the halfway stage. After we come back, we've got next week before Easter, and we've got 5 weeks when we come back from Easter. So time is really starting to go the other way now, where it'll feel like a pinch point soon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for the next formative review, we're currently looking at all the categories unfortunately in the fail section at the moment. I'd say there's limited understanding of subject context at the moment on the website. Yeah. There's little or no evidence of research, and there's insufficient sort of planning happening. It might be that we could just argue slightly that there's some planning in that we've got some things happening on the site, like we've got a time management stuff, but very limited evidence, really. Things like you want to build into here, like use asset. You need to nail down exactly how many characters you're doing, how many you're producing. One of the things that you could use a survey for is to help get people to feedback on the designs, like get a range of designs and people feedback on which ones they like before you take them into a more polished final piece of concept artwork. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you can access a community of people that will be able to give you feedback that's more useful to this type of subject matter, then that would be really helpful to try and get them engaged and get the feedback at that stage. Okay. So are you going for how many characters did we say again? How many are you going to try and produce?
5.
5 full turnarounds, full like
yeah.
Which is is a lot to do, but there's more research and contextual work needed before we get to that point. A lot more. Okay, so environment work, texture detailing, thinking about like a lot more in terms of other franchises, just in terms of how furries are represented, like the type of aesthetic. Some breakdown of like the typical traits of these sorts of characters and how, whether they're in physical costume form or how they're drawn. The fact they have like these large eyes, they have this kind of Eastern culture representation of oversized eyes and cartoonish, sort of cute features. They don't look, even like you said, the wolf race doesn't really look very menacing, particularly because it has these big oversized eyes and it has a kind of a more cute stance. They add scars and things maybe to make it, but that kind of stuff I need to see happening in your research and show that breakdown of these sorts of images more. Okay.
Yeah.
And then your research needs to then go into technical research. So like how to draw these characters, like you say in that book that you've got is great, but maybe you look at YouTube tutorials, etc. And not just about that particular style, that furry style, but just about drawing and representing fur, eyes, and maybe doing some more photorealistic studies before you then go and do the caricature styles that are representative of this game. Okay.
Yep.
Right. So a lot to be done, a huge amount to be done. We're gonna, because this is so far behind where it should be, I'm gonna build in another like mini interim check immediately after Easter. Before we're not gonna let it go too far to the next formative stage before I check on this progress. Okay.
All right.
So there needs to be a lot happening on there, Cameron, to get this to where it needs to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Do you know what you need to do now?
Research. Well, a lot of research.
Yeah.
And then like obviously changing the title on proposal form. And then more sort of planning stuff as well.
Yeah, more planning, like to-do lists, kind of time management things, and then when you're doing the drawings and doing the design work in the next stage and looking at getting into that, don't go straight into polished kind of tracing of outlines and things like we've got going on here. I want more of the workings out. So like the fur texture sampling, detailing, like close-ups of bits, and maybe like trying different art styles. So maybe try one in a slightly more realistic style than a traditional cartoony style and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna leave it at that. Have you got any more that you want to add at this stage?
Obviously I've got like some basic sketches of my sidekick characters. Should I just add them on and like explain that?
Yeah, definitely. Anything that you're doing for it should be added like daily, like trying to get in the habit of doing things rapidly so that as you do them, they're up, and then you blog about them in more detail than you're doing. Okay. The other thing I would really encourage at this stage is to step away from the graphics tablet a little bit. Graphics tablet work represents very finalized outcomes. And the immediacy of using pencil sketchbooks is just going to mean that you can be looser and probably more rapid in your work processes to try things out and sketch them out. If you then the workflow that is used in industry and concept art is there for a reason, because it is that speedier process. All right. So if you sketch out your characters roughly on paper, scan them, photograph them, put them in the background, and then work them up into finalized versions, or take the sketches, put that to a survey, get the feedback back on which are the best items to take forward, and then develop your concepts. But don't do that until you've got the grounding of like, right, this is set in a medieval time. It's set in a kind of a representation of ancient Britain, for example. In which case, then go and look at examples of places around the local area that have architecture or styles that are similar to what you're after, and then that might help you to inform. Maybe you draw a bit of a background for one of your bits of your character's design to show that them in context and to show them it by their like sort of lower sort of quality housing if they're the peasant phase of the characters or whatever. Yeah. So try and get those things going in terms of research that shows where the context of the character is, where they live, and etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to stop recording here. And unless you've got anything else you want to add at this point?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, let's stop that there then.